these are the fragrance notes that I'm a little bit cautious about. Whenever I see these in a scent pyramid, I always proceed with caution because I don't know if I'll like the fragrance or if I'll dislike it, because sometimes these notes can go either way. If this is your first time watching this channel, hello, my name is Anya. I love fragrances. I talk about them here 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. I also post additional content on Instagram and TikTok under the username ANECHKAFRAGRANCES, and I do have a podcast called The Fragrance Report. We publish a new episode every Wednesday, and then I publish the full-length episodes here on YouTube for you guys to watch as well. So yes, like I said, these are the fragrance notes that I'm a little bit cautious about. I've done another video recently where I talked about other fragrance notes that I'm cautious about, and I think some of you might be surprised by my picks when it comes to that. But generally, as someone who already has more than 100 fragrances in her collection, whenever it comes to a new fragrance, I don't want it to be too redundant compared to the other fragrances in my collection, and B, I don't want it to be so out of pocket that I dislike the fragrance. And that's why I'm not saying that these are the fragrance notes I hate. I'm just saying that these are the fragrance notes I'm cautious of, because there are so many fragrance notes that I have disliked, and then I tried a fragrance and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love this. So it just definitely depends. Like sometimes you have fragrances that you love, and sometimes there are fragrance notes that you're kind of like, not my cup of tea. So yeah, this is gonna be that kind of video. But not gonna lie, I did take inspiration from what a lot of you guys said in my last video on this topic. A lot of you guys offered up your kind of not favorite fragrance notes in the comments of that video. So I did steal some of those, okay, because I did kind of watch that and I was like, okay, you know what? I agree with this. So if you see yours in here, it's because I stole it from you. Sorry in advance, but I hope you don't mind. And I also did film another video where I talked about the fragrance notes that I want to see more in 2025. So be sure to check that out as well if you want to see something more positive. Not that this is negative, but sometimes we like to talk about things that we don't like as much. So anyway, let's start talking about the first one, which is Vetiver. Now, I believe Poe, you talked about Vetiver, or you've been talking about Vetiver in the comment section, because I do read you guys' comments and I do respond, and it kind of it is fun kind of seeing the same people day after day, because I do recognize the handle and I can see who's been commenting, and I love having this kind of daily dialogue with you guys. It's really rewarding and I love it. But yeah, Vetiver is honestly something that I absolutely agree with. It's one of those fragrance notes that I either really like or I'm really cautious of, because sometimes it can really add to a fragrance. Like for example, Replicas on a Date, that has Vetiver in it, and I'm like, that's delicious. But sometimes when vetiver has really been added so too much into the fragrance, I just end up not loving it. So yeah, vetiver is definitely one of those fragrance notes that I'm either for or against. I would say there's really no in between. I mean, maybe there is, but yeah, I either like the vetiver or I don't like it. It just depends on the fragrance itself and the other notes in the perfume. So next up is honey, and this is a note that I'm cautious of, not because I don't like the smell of it. I actually really do, but I do think a lot of times honey can smell a little bit redundant. It depends on the fragrance. So for example, if a fragrance is predominantly honey and only really smells of honey, maybe with some accent notes, there are only so many fragrances you can have that smell like that. So if you have more than a few fragrances, all of a sudden you have so many honey fragrances in your collection, and honey is one of those notes. Sometimes it can smell a little bit cloying in certain situations. So I like honey, just I have to smell it first before I make a decision on it. So that's why I'm careful with it. So yeah, it depends. Or sometimes honey can just be a little bit too redundant. I love Zoologist Bee. That is straight up honey. But after, I literally have a decant of it. I have a 10 milliliter decant. That fragrance is so potent that I don't think I'll ever need to buy the full bottle, because I haven't even gone through that fragrance. I've had that decant for years. So when I think of straight up honey, I just need that decant and that's it. That's how intense that fragrance is. But there's also, I think, a fragrance from this other brand, I forget, that was a baklava inspired fragrance, but that fragrance really pumped up the honey so much. I only smelled the honey and I was like, I don't really love that. I think it's Arcanum, I think. It smelled nice. It just wasn't my cup of tea because again of that honey. It was just too much. Another fragrance note that I'm always like kind of like wishy-washy about, and it's just because I don't think I've smelled many iterations of this note that I enjoy, and that is lavender. I think a lot of times the kind of male leaning fragrances have commandeered the lavender, and now it's just reincorporated in so many fragrances as more of a masculine leaning note. And personally, I'm not really into that. Like, I like lavender fragrances that have, I mean, I want to smell like a photorealistic lavender, you know? Like, I want to be able to smell the lavender, the actual flower, more often in fragrances. And so far, I haven't really seen that as much. There is what's it called? The Libre line. That's like quintessential lavender, but to be honest, like that's just too much. I'm not really into that because I feel like it's just been overplayed so much. I smell it everywhere, so I'm just not into that line. It's not my favorite interpretation of lavender, but there are not a lot of lavender fragrance notes that I've liked. I definitely think that there are some that I've liked, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. If you think of one that I might have mentioned in a previous video that I liked, please remind me because I know that I'm missing. I know I've talked about lavender fragrances before, but they're not that plentiful, and like the ones that I do like, they're not like it's not that often because like usually it's going to be like a masculine more masculine scent profile, which I like on a guy, but I'm just not going to wear. Next, red berries. I don't love red berries in fragrance notes because more often than not, red berries turn out to smell something like Bath and Body Works. And I have no problem with Bath and Body Works. Like if you're gonna smell like a Bath and Body Works spray, no issue with that, no problem whatsoever. The only thing I don't like is when a fragrance that costs more than a Bath and Body Works product ends up smelling like a Bath and Body Works slash Victoria's Secret fragrance mist. Like if you're going to smell like Bath and Body Works or Victoria's Secret, you should be paying Victoria's Secret slash Bath and Body Works pricing. You shouldn't be paying like a designer price to smell like that, you know? And I feel like a lot of times when you put red berries into a fragrance, or at least the red berries that I have smelled, it ends up smelling kind of like that body spray, smell, which I don't love. An example of this is Eilish by Billie Eilish. That original gold one. I just did not like that because I just felt like the red berries in there, like they were super fleeting, and when they were there, they just smelled like a cheap body spray, and I wasn't really into that. I do, however, like Nibras by Latafa because that is a more realistic version of red berries, but it doesn't end up smelling like a body spray. It ends up smelling like you would expect red berries to smell, but sometimes that red berries note can be interpreted in so many different ways, and most of the time it's not my favorite. Okay, so what's next? Tobacco. Now, this is one that some of you guys have called me out on, and this is warranted, not gonna lie, because I previously have said I don't like tobacco, and then I talk about tobacco fragrances that I like. And okay, I'm starting to like tobacco more, but like I'm still so nervous about the tobacco note because there's something about like that sweetness in tobacco that sometimes I'm not a fan of. I like touches of tobacco, but sometimes if tobacco is done in the wrong way to my nose, this is to my nose. I don't like it, but I've been warming up to it, but I still want to smell it before committing to it. You know what I mean? What's next? Okay, so next, pistachio. You guys might already know about this, like if you've been watching my Smash or Pass videos where I talk about fragrance news every Monday. But pistachio, honestly, can be so redundant so much of the time. I have only smelled one pistachio fragrance in recent memory, and that was actually from Snif. I think that was the Heal the Way fragrance. That's the only pistachio fragrance that didn't lean into the whole pistachio gelato trend that started with Kayali and has been regurgitated so many times. My head is spinning. Like, I don't need another version of pistachio gelato. Like, I just don't. In one of my recent videos, I talked about Middle Eastern fragrances I'm not a fan of, and I think I featured pistachio in that video once or twice. Like, I'm just not a fan of pistachio anymore, the way it's being done. If it's like a new twist on it, then sure. But so often, like more often than not, I see pistachio and then I try the fragrance and it ends up smelling like every other pistachio fragrance. It's kind of turning into the new cherry. Not a fan of that. Okay, so next, lemon. I put lemon in here because there are a few interpretations of lemon that I'm not a fan of. So, I mean, we all know that sometimes lemon can smell like cleaning product, and I think that's established. But sometimes lemon, like when it's paired with like gourmand notes, it ends up smelling like a lemony tart. But they usually amp up the lemon and the vanilla, so it ends up smelling like a lemon custardy tart. But like there are only so many times you can smell that, or so many interpretations that you can have of that in your collection, and it just ends up being too redundant. That's my personal opinion. The lemon that I do like happens to be in Theodore's Calatinus Lemon Tart. I like that fragrance a lot because it actually really leans into the buttery, flaky crust accord, and that I really enjoy because that's a unique interpretation of lemon. The other like kind of gourmand lemon fragrances that I've been launching I like, but I don't love, and I don't really want to add to my collection because they end up smelling a little bit too redundant, in my personal opinion, which is why I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to lemon as a fragrance note. But yeah, those were all the fragrance notes I'm not super into. It is getting so dark in this video. Look, it's me. That's my shadow. That's how dark it is. But yeah, thank you for watching till the end. I hope you found this video enjoyable, entertaining. If you have any notes that you're avoiding, or if there are any notes that you think that I should have mentioned that I didn't mention, let me know in the comments. Let's have a chat about it. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.